The economy feels tense, as if everyone is holding their breath waiting for the next headline or market move. On city streets you can sense the unease. People glance at their phones, scanning for updates while office workers gather around televisions, hoping for good news but bracing for the worst. It's like the calm before a storm, a moment of uneasy quiet that hangs in the air. The sky seems darker, the streets a little emptier, as if the city itself is anticipating trouble on the horizon. Prices at the grocery store and gas pump keep rising, squeezing paychecks and forcing families to make tough choices. Every trip to the store feels heavier, as shoppers compare prices and wonder how much further their money will stretch. At the gas station, drivers watch the numbers climb, calculating what they can afford. These aren't just feelings, they're warning signs flashing in plain sight. Rising costs, shrinking savings, and a sense of uncertainty are all signals that something bigger might be brewing beneath the surface. Economists are watching closely, poring over data and debating what comes next. They're asking the big question: is this just a passing cloud, a temporary blip, or the start of a major storm that could reshape the economy for years to come? One key signal they're watching is the inverted yield curve, an unusual situation where short-term bonds pay more than long-term ones. This flip in the normal order is rare, and it often signals that investors are nervous about the future. Historically, this inverted yield curve has predicted nearly every major recession in the last 50 years. It's like a financial weather vane pointing toward trouble ahead, and economists take it seriously. When investors see this signal, they worry about what's coming next. Stock prices can tumble, and business leaders start to plan for leaner times, cutting back on spending and hiring. Another red flag is falling consumer sentiment. When people lose confidence in the economy, they pull back on spending, which can create a self-fulfilling prophecy of slower growth. When families worry about inflation and job security, they tighten their budgets. Shoppers hesitate before making purchases, weighing needs versus wants, and this caution ripples through the entire economy, slowing things down even more. Globally, the picture isn't much brighter. Growth is slowing in major economies like China and Germany, and headlines warn of new challenges abroad. These slowdowns can have a domino effect, impacting trade and investment around the world. For American companies, these international headwinds make it harder to do business overseas. Deals stall, offices close, and frustration grows as opportunities dry up in key markets. All these factors, the inverted yield curve, anxious consumers, and global instability, combine to paint a picture of rough economic weather ahead. It's a perfect storm of uncertainty, with warning signs coming from every direction. The question isn't if we'll face challenges, but how severe they'll be. Will this be a short downturn or something deeper and longer lasting? Business leaders and policymakers are preparing for all scenarios. The data is clear, caution is warranted. Analysts are combing through reports, looking for any sign of hope or danger, and advising clients to be careful with their investments and spending. The next few months will be critical. Every new data release, every policy decision, and every global event will be watched closely as the world tries to figure out what comes next. Are we ready for what's coming? Only time will tell. For now, all we can do is stay informed, prepare for uncertainty, and hope that the storm passes with less damage than we fear. The jobs report has been a rare bright spot in an otherwise uncertain economy. Unemployment is at historic lows, and jobs seem plentiful across many industries. From bustling offices to busy construction sites, and from retail stores to tech startups, millions of Americans are clocking in each day, fueling a sense of optimism that the worst may be behind us. But if you look a little closer, the picture isn't quite as rosy. While more people are working, wage growth is struggling to keep pace with the rising cost of living. Inflation has been outpacing pay increases, meaning that even as paychecks grow on paper, their real-world value is shrinking. For many families, this means that their hard-earned money doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Grocery bills are higher, rent is up, and everyday essentials cost more. The result? Households are feeling the squeeze, forced to make tough choices about where to cut back. Adding to the complexity, there's a growing mismatch in the job market. Some sectors, like healthcare and technology, are desperate for workers and can't fill open positions fast enough. Meanwhile, other industries are facing layoffs and closures, leaving skilled workers searching for new opportunities. To tackle inflation, the Federal Reserve has been steadily raising interest rates, making it more expensive to borrow money for everything from homes to business investments. The goal is to slow down spending and bring prices under control, but higher rates can also put the brakes on economic growth. At the same time, the government is ramping up spending on infrastructure and technology, hoping to lay the foundation for long-term economic growth. New roads, bridges, and digital networks are being built, promising more jobs and a stronger economy in the future. However, this surge in government spending can also add fuel to the inflation fire in the short term, pushing prices even higher before the benefits are fully realized. It's a classic tug of war. The Federal Reserve is tapping the brakes to slow things down, while Congress is pressing the gas to speed things up. These opposing forces create a confusing and sometimes contradictory policy environment. For businesses and families alike, it's hard to know which way things are headed. Policymakers debate, experts disagree, and the average person is left trying to make sense of mixed signals. If the Federal Reserve slows the economy too much, we could tip into a recession, with rising unemployment and shuttered businesses. But if government spending continues unchecked, inflation could spiral even further, eroding savings and making life more expensive for everyone. It's a delicate balancing act, with policymakers walking a tightrope between too much caution and too much risk. The stakes couldn't be higher, as every decision shapes the financial well-being of millions. The strength of today's job market is not guaranteed to last. Shifts in policy, global events, or unexpected shocks could quickly change the outlook, leaving workers and businesses vulnerable. The next moves by the Federal Reserve, Congress, and business leaders will shape not just the job market, but the entire economy's future. The choices made now will echo for years to come. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency, giving America unique power. Countries need dollars for trade, so demand stays high. This lets the US borrow cheaply and live beyond its means. But this exorbitant privilege is also a risk. If global trust in the dollar fades, our economy could unravel quickly. A strong dollar makes imports cheaper but hurts American exports. Recently, countries like China and Russia are pushing to trade in their own currencies. Economic blocs like BRICS want to reduce reliance on the dollar. If this trend grows, borrowing costs could spike and imports get pricier. The dollar's dominance is no longer guaranteed. America's financial power is being tested. The world is watching, and so should we. The privilege could become a problem. The stakes are global. America's national debt has soared past $35 trillion, a number so large it's almost impossible to truly grasp. Imagine stacking dollar bills to the moon and back, and you'd still fall short. This debt isn't just a number on a government spreadsheet. It's a force shaping our economy, our politics, and even our relationships with other countries. For years, low interest rates made this mountain of debt seem manageable, almost invisible. Borrowing was cheap, and the government could spend without feeling much pain. But now, as interest rates climb higher, the cost of carrying this debt is ballooning. Every uptick means billions more in interest payments, money that could have gone elsewhere. As a result, a growing share of the federal budget is being swallowed by interest payments. That leaves less for things that matter to everyday Americans, like funding schools, building roads, or maintaining a strong national defense. The squeeze is real, and it's only getting tighter. What's more, a significant portion of this debt is held by foreign countries. China and Japan in particular own hundreds of billions in US Treasury bonds. This means our financial health is partly in their hands. If these countries ever decide to stop buying, or worse, start selling US bonds, it could send shockwaves through global markets. Interest rates here at home could skyrocket overnight, making it much more expensive for everyone to borrow money. That would hit American families hard. Mortgages would become pricier, car loans would be tougher to afford, and credit card interest could spiral out of control. Everyday life would get more expensive, and financial stress would ripple through households across the country. In the worst-case scenario, a sudden sell-off of US debt could trigger a full-blown financial crisis, one that could rival or even surpass the turmoil of 2008. Our economic stability, in many ways, depends on the goodwill and cooperation of countries that are now strategic rivals. It's a delicate balance, and one that grows more precarious as global tensions rise. Geopolitical tensions, especially with nations like China and Russia, add another layer of risk. If relations sour, financial cooperation could quickly turn into economic warfare. Global conflicts don't just disrupt supply chains, they can push countries into competing economic blocs, making it harder to work together and keep markets stable. At home, political divisions make it even harder to find solutions. The world is fracturing, and America's massive debt load makes us more vulnerable to shocks from both inside and outside our borders. Our financial future is tied to international trust and cooperation. Without it, the risks multiply, and the path forward becomes even more uncertain. The mountain of debt isn't just a distant worry, it's a growing threat that affects us all. The clock is ticking, and the choices we make now will shape America's future for generations to come. America's trade policy has shifted. Tariffs are back. Tariffs aim to protect U.S. industries and jobs by making imports more expensive. The hope boosts domestic manufacturing and reduce reliance on rivals, but tariffs raise prices for consumers and disrupt supply chains. When we tax imports, other countries retaliate, hurting American exporters, especially farmers. The result: winners and losers within our own economy. Rebuilding manufacturing isn't quick or easy. Tariffs are a blunt tool with real costs. The challenge is balancing protection with global competitiveness. The world is less connected, and the risks are higher. Trade wars can quickly become economic wars. The path forward is uncertain. Every move has consequences. Inflation has surged, hitting Americans everywhere, from gas pumps to grocery aisles. A flood of stimulus money met broken supply chains, creating the perfect storm. Factories shut down, ports clogged, and goods became scarce. Too much money chased too few products. Classic inflation. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates to cool demand but can't fix supply problems. It's like trying to fix a leaky pipe by turning down the thermostat. Some supply chains are healing, but global uncertainty remains. The war in Ukraine and rising tensions are reshaping where companies make things. Reshoring production is costly and slow. The era of cheap, abundant goods may be over. Higher inflation and supply disruptions could be the new normal. The fight against inflation is far from over. Americans may need to adjust expectations. The economic landscape has changed. Adaptation is key. The housing market, once red hot, is now cooling fast. Low interest rates fueled a buying frenzy and record prices. Now mortgage rates have doubled, making homes unaffordable for many. Demand has dropped and sales have slowed. Homeowners with low rates are staying put, keeping supply tight. Prices haven't crashed, but the market is frozen. Fewer sales mean less economic activity. If prices fall sharply, it could trigger wider financial problems. The housing market's health is crucial for the broader economy. A frozen market drags on growth. The risk of a deeper downturn is real. The next moves in rates and policy will be critical. The foundation feels shaky. Stability is far from certain. Put it all together: inverted yield curve, inflation, debt, global tensions, and a frozen housing market, and the outlook is precarious. Many economists now see a recession as likely, not just possible. The Federal Reserve hopes for a soft landing, but history says it's tough to pull off. A hard landing, a full recession, could mean rising unemployment and falling spending. The timing? Some predict a downturn by mid-2026 based on past patterns. The path ahead is narrow. One policy mistake could tip us into crisis. A US recession would ripple worldwide, slowing global growth and shaking markets. The dollar might strengthen at first, but that brings its own risks. When America stumbles, the world feels it. The stakes are global and the margin for error is slim. Policymakers face tough choices. The next few years will test the system. Preparation is everything. If a crash hits in 2026, the job market will shift from shortages to layoffs. Sectors like tech and real estate would be hit first, then the pain would spread. Unemployment would rise and families would feel the strain. Asset values, stocks, retirement accounts, even homes, could fall sharply. The government would scramble to respond, but high debt and recent inflation would limit options. Political battles over new stimulus would be fierce. For individuals, resilience is key: emergency savings, less debt, and flexibility. A crash could force a painful reset, exposing long-term problems. It might be the push needed to address debt and rethink global supply chains. The storm may be coming, but preparation matters. How we respond will shape the recovery. The future is uncertain, but not hopeless. What we do now will define the years ahead.